tap-outs. Inside the octagon and beyond.
Is this not real now? Are you pretending? Well, this baby, break out the red panties.
This is the MMA Report with John Paul
Unbelievable!
on TSN Radio.
Here we go! Welcome to the MMA Report. I'm your host, John Pollock, here on TSN Radio. Loaded show coming your way over the next hour. We are going to be joined by Mickey Gall, who is going to be in action this Saturday in Sacramento, taking on Sage Northcutt. He called his shot after beating CM Punk. He said he wanted Sage Northcutt, and he got the fight. A lesson for many fighters out there. Mickey Gall will be joining us as well. We are going to be revisiting a number of the individuals who were in action this past weekend at UFC 206 in Toronto. We are going to hear from Max Holloway, Donald Cerrone, and Calvin Gastelum coming out of their victories on Saturday night. I had the opportunity to speak to those three just moments after their wins at the Air Canada Centre. On top of that, I had a chance to chat with UFC President Dana White on Friday going into Saturday's card, and we are going to chat with him about a number of larger topics, including the Mixed Martial Arts Athletes Association, the future of Misha Tate, and more coming your way. And if that's not enough, UFC light heavyweight contender Anthony Rumble Johnson is on the show, as he is in wait-and-see mode, I guess, because Daniel Cormier recently had surgery for his abductor muscle, and now we await Daniel Cormier to get back to 100% health, because that's the fight to make, Daniel Cormier and Anthony Johnson. So all of that is coming your way, but we're going to start things off. There's a lot of fight announcements from the past 7 days, but looking at last weekend, it was a packed weekend of combat sports action. Not just the UFC, who had cards on Friday and Saturday. Bellator was in Italy with a card, and Glory had one of their biggest shows ever. You could argue their biggest ever. I think in terms of buzz and hype, they have never presented a fight that has had more than Badr Hari and Rico Verhoeven from Oberhausen, Germany, this past Saturday. But the UFC, you know, it's funny because had we just given the Albany card its own weekend, how crazy is this that on whether it was Saturday morning or Monday morning, whenever you gather around with your friends to chat about the weekend's action, everyone would have been chatting about Jean Vellante and Saparbek Safarov, who had this wild fight that went into the second round. This was, as Jean Vellante described it, ugly, as they just threw bombs at one another. The defense was not existent at the Times Union Center on Friday evening, but Jean Vellante had, he got the victory, and afterwards, a classic post-fight interview, thanking Joe Silva, stating that of all places, Joe Silva's here in Albany, and then we cut to Joe Silva during this tribute on his phone. Barely didn't get any credence. Awesome. Was my highlight of the Albany card was that cutaway shot. And the card also featured Francis Ngannou submitting Anthony Hamilton in the opening round, and then the main event, Derek Lewis stopping Shamila Abdurakhimov in the fourth round. Derek Lewis very critical of his performance, which makes two in a row now, where he's got his arm raised, and the dude has just been miserable after. I was there for the Roy Nelson fight, and afterwards he's falling asleep at the press conference. There's only one Derek Lewis, but both of those men have fights coming out of the Albany card, which we will get to promptly. But the big show of the weekend, for the UFC at least, was UFC 206, a card that featured many changes going into it, one that people have been critical of. I will say this, we always hear the statement that, you know, after a great fight card, where everyone said, oh, everyone dogged this card, it's like, nobody looked at this fight card, at least that had any knowledge of mixed martial arts, and thought this was a bad card on paper. I think everybody said that, yours truly included. This main card looked outstanding. What it lacked was your marquee main event that would make this a successful pay-per-view, and that's accurate. So often, those two criticisms get intertwined into one cohesive argument, and it's not. They're two separate arguments about whether something is a marketable pay-per-view versus what is just a great fight card on paper. If this had been a free box card, this had been a free FS1 card, there would have been no complaints going into it. This is a card that blows away the Fox card coming up this Saturday, and that's a good Fox card this Saturday in Sacramento. But I feel you are well within your rights to look at a card and acknowledge this is not a card that is going to be dynamite numbers on paper. Now, to the credit of the UFC, to the Toronto fan base, they filled this arena. The Air Canada Centre was full on Saturday night. They announced a crowd of 18,057 and a gate of just over $1.8 million US. Now, tickets were definitely scaled down. I heard, just first-hand accounts of people being able to buy tickets at the last minute for, relatively cheap prices. Your $30 range, which to me, that is the price point you want to have on a card like this. I don't have any issue with them scaling down. They made a wise choice, and you had a tremendous audience on hand for Saturday's card, highlighted by what will probably be the fight of the year on many people's ballot between Cub Swanson and Duho Choi. A fantastic 3-round featherweight fight. What put the cherry on top for me was Duho Choi being interviewed after and getting a standing ovation from the crowd in Toronto. It was incredible. The greatest fight of Cub Swanson's career. All of a sudden, he could be one fight away from challenging for the 145-pound championship. He significantly upped his stock. He was a featherweight that I don't think we looked at with championship options. And now, he certainly does. And it was funny because when Anthony Pettis missed weight on Friday, I was talking about the fact that Cub Swanson wins that fight and Anthony Pettis wins. Swanson could be the next guy, given the fact that you're not going to go to Aldo and Frankie Edgar so soon. Ricardo Lamas had just lost to Max Holloway. Cub Swanson would be next in line if you weren't confident in giving Anthony Pettis a title fight. Thankfully, Max Holloway did not throw the division into chaos. He had a dominant performance against Anthony Pettis, being the first man to stop him in Pettis' career at 450 of the third round. Max Holloway not only came out of the shell, he burst out of one over. It's really been forming over the past number of months. We've seen this personality from him, this charisma, this confidence. And confidence to me is always, fans can see real confidence and they can see an act that is put on. And with Max Holloway, it's pure confidence that they buy into. They've seen him go and succeed, and this guy is just on fire. And he felt like a superstar in Toronto last week. And whether that can translate to future success as a draw, we're going to see. But in terms of this audience, who many may have bought tickets when they thought Daniel Cormier and Anthony Johnson were headlining, when they were probably holding out hope George St. Pierre would end up on this card. The fact is, when those fell apart, they didn't get rid of their tickets. They stuck around, and Max Holloway and Anthony Pettis deserve some credit for the fact that this was a full house on Saturday night. Donald Cerrone and Matt Brown kind of lost in the mix here, but Donald Cerrone, an incredible head kick knockout. That first round was so close. It was really 2 rounds. The first half of that first round was all Cerrone, and then Matt Brown came alive around 2.5 minutes in. And you could go either way on the first. Matt Brown clearly won the second. I don't think you write this off about Matt Brown as some kind of a career stagnation, because I saw a lot from him working through Dwayne Ludwig. He has now lost 5 of 6. That doesn't really tell the story of Matt Brown. I think there's a lot of positive Matt Brown can take from that fight, and not one of those instances where you don't just go off the record. Now, let's fast forward. A bunch of news this week. The biggest one being that they have installed a new women's 145-pound championship. It will be contested between Holly Holm and Jermaine Durandamy, February the 11th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. We talk about Holloway and Pettis and creating an interim title to headline a pay-per-view. This is very similar. And they're putting this championship in play because they need it for the Barclays Center. They suddenly don't have a ton of options for the Barclays Center. This is not going to be able to sustain Barclays Center card so soon after UFC 205 in that New York market to headline on pay-per-view. Holm did very good numbers on Fox last July, but this division, let's be honest, this division is happening because Chris Cyborg Jasvino, this is her division, and she was offered the opportunity to fight for this title January 21st and February 11th. She informed the UFC she couldn't make weight in that time, which is concerning. She has gone over the problems she's had coming out of that fight with Lena Landsberg from her weight cut. She's not working with George Lockhart anymore. So it's concerning if Cyborg is still suffering effects from that and doesn't believe she can make weight by February the 11th at 145. So that's definitely an issue. I don't think anyone is looking at this division as anything other than it's a division that allows Cyborg to now fight at 145. Holly Holm and Chris Cyborg, that could be a very big fight at 145. But that's hardly a given that fight is going to occur. And you're looking at the fact, I mean, if you're just looking at the pure sporting side of this, Holly Holm is coming off a pair of losses, and Jermaine Durandamy, all due respect, she's had 2 fights in 3 years. She's had 1 win in that time span. This is hardly, the ideal title scenario to kick off a division that you can certainly argue is not going to have the depth. Now, this also opens the door to me that there are no more excuses to not add a 125-pound women's division. We spoke with Valerie Letourneau last week. It was an awful cut for her, and she missed weight for her strawweight fight this past weekend against Viviane Pereira. So when you have a 20-pound gap and you have women that are oversized at 115 and significantly undersized at 135, I think you have to fill that gap at 125. There's certainly more women that can fight at 125 than there are 145, at least at present, under a UFC contract. We've seen what a fleshed out featherweight division looks like. Invicta ran one, with Chris Cyborg just running through women. And it was just simply tuning to Cyborg and the opponent of the night. So that is one of the major stories from this past week. Fight announcements. Ariel Helwani reported Donald Cerrone and Jorge Masvidal set for January 28th in Denver. It is scheduled for that night in Denver on Fox, as is Andrei Arlovsky and Francis Ngannou, who was victorious this past weekend. That reported on UFC Tonight. And also added to that UFC 208 card in Brooklyn, Derek Lewis will be taking on Travis Brown. That was reported by ESPN. And Halifax, my country, we kind of claim ownership of just any city north of the United States. But Halifax will be run Sunday night, February the 19th. That will be headlined by a 2009 heavyweight rematch between Junior Dos Santos and Stefan Struve. Will also feature the debut of Ayman Zahabi, one of the top Canadian prospects. For years, he's been on the UFC's radar, the brother of Firas Zahabi, so he'll make his UFC debut that night as well. And Fortaleza, Brazil, on March the 11th, it was reported by Globo, Kelvin Gastelum sticking around at 185 after his win to take on Vitor Belfort, as well as Edson Barbosa meeting Daniil Dariush. We're going to take the break. When we come back, Max Holloway, Donald Cerrone, Kelvin Gastelum, all of that coming your way on a packed edition of the MMA Report on TSN Radio. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the MMA Report with John Pollock on TSN Radio.
Welcome back to the show. It's John Pollock with you here on TSN Radio. It is the MMA Report, and we are going to rewind to last Saturday night at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto for UFC 206. I had the opportunity to speak to a handful of the winners from the main card. We're going to start things off with Kelvin Gastelum, who had an awful month leading into this fight. He was not able to weigh in at UFC 205. His fight with Donald Cerrone was canceled. Gastelum was then told he's sticking around at middleweight, he will not fight at welterweight, and got this fight with Tim Kennedy. So on a month's notice, he had to prepare for Kennedy. He came in, he faced a lot of scrutiny, and then looked fantastic against Tim Kennedy. This is the second time he's fought at 185 in the UFC, the other being Nate Marquardt, and he has looked dynamite at this weight. And as I just mentioned in the last segment, he's going to stay around for a third fight, taking on Vitor Belfort in March. So here he is, Kelvin Gastelum, moments after a win, in a very trying month for Gastelum.
This was a test big test for me to overcome for many reasons. I've had a lot to overcome these last few weeks, a lot of criticism, a lot of negative comments towards me, and a lot of negative publicity towards me, the Americans are playing, and things that happen in terms of my personal life, professional life. So it was getting better and let's get forward to it.
It's a weird question, but as you look back now, at the end of the year,
How do you describe 2016 for you? Because on paper, I mean, former champion John Hendrick, he's been funny. The guy who won the victory over the middleweight champion. I mean, how do you classify this year? Because inside of the cage, he's made a lot of advancements. Well, I classified as a successful year, you know. In life, we have ups and downs, and failures, and then we have wins. And tonight was a good win. And, you know, it's just about checks and balances, I think, in my life. And today was a nice one.
Did you realize that you couldn't die at the end of the first round? What the image
I knew that he was getting slower and he was getting more fatigued. So I knew I had pressure to a little more, and then eventually either he would get more tired and he would quit, or I would try and keep him.
And last question, how did you feel at the weight? I mean, it's not the first time you fought at middleweight. This is something where you'll sit down and assess if you survive the weight class, right? Because the results have been there for you.
For sure, I feel like if fight at 85 was offered to me, that one of the top contenders was offered to me, and it interested me, and I'll stay at 85, but if not, then I'll start calling for a contender.
That was Calvin Gastelum, and now we'll shift over and hear from Donald Cerrone. On most nights, Donald Cerrone and Matt Brown would have been easily taking home the Fight of the Night bonus. They were left bonusless on Saturday night, stunningly, which was a testament to what you saw on Saturday night. But here's Donald Cerrone chatting about his fourth victory of 2016.
Oh, that was just an incredible fight. Seriously, it's really one watching. Your teammate helps a lot. You guys are both that call.
Tell me about it. I was trying to warm up as I'm like, whoa. So yeah, watching the crowd throw down was hard to warm up. Yeah, you did a tremendous job out of pumping again.
Looks like you're both going to be competing for that bonus money. I think some extra dollars will be coming both your way.
You know, I would be really happy to take that bonus money, but I think my teammate Landon, I think he deserved it more than me. So I would, if I can say anything, I'd gladly pass that one down to him.
You stated at the weigh-ins to Matt, you know, we're going to be serious, we're going to fight tomorrow, let's joke around here. You're always such a loose guy. When does that switch flip for you? Is it as you're just walking out? And when do you really flip that switch?
Yeah, when you hear the music, when you open those curtains and there's 18,000 people screaming your name, you gotta go through the thing. I've learned to enjoy the ride, man, the journey. So walking the cages, can't explain it.
Nerves ever a thing for you? Is that just something you don't deal with?
Well, I deal with nerves like crazy.
Great poker face out there. You know, this was a spectacular fight with Matt. He landed the head kick on you. I mean, tell us, especially in that second round, as you're going into the third, what you feel you did that fight.
No, my coaches were talking to me, and I remember turning and looking at the thing and saying, I fucking love my job. And he was like, alright. No, it wasn't like, the scores never matter to me. I'm always like, oh, I'm down, I gotta go harder. I love that feeling. Like, when he's punching me and setting me back, and I come back, it's like, I can't explain that feeling. It's unreal, and I love it.
We're getting towards the end of the year. A lot of names being thrown out for Fighter of the Year. I'm not hearing Donald Cerrone's name. 4-0 this year at welterweight. I mean, I think you're in the hunt here. This has been a tremendous year for Donald Cerrone.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Hey, it is what it is. I don't care.
Denver's next on the calendar.
I still hope so. January 28th, Denver, Colorado. Yeah.
And we will go from Donald Cerrone and end off with Max Holloway, the new UFC interim featherweight champion. He was a star to these Toronto fans last week, and it continued into the post-fight, and a very cool cameo here by one UFC President Dana White informing Max that he would be getting a bonus for his victory over Anthony Pettis in the main event.
You were really embraced by the city, going out there in a main event position. What does this all mean to you, Max? Are you able to process it so quickly after?
No, man, it's all coming at me at 200 miles per hour, man. And I love this city, like you said, man. There was the cheers in there for me. It was crazy. I was looking around. Did we have a sellout today? Was it a sellout almost?
They haven't announced it. It looked full out there.
It was cool though. Holy shit. And you know, like all I can say, man, is I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I got the support. You know, I got to go in there, show everybody. I've been saying, man, a star is gonna be born tonight, and
Be honest, when you were out there and you're feeling this crowd, it's full, you had to be thinking, man, this is good. What would it feel like?
Oh man, there's only one way to find out. Dana, get your ass to Hawaii. Hashtag you say what? I can't believe I forgot to say that shit in the damn ring. That's how you know that thing is good. Coming up, you know.
There's way more people watching this.
Oh my god. Hashtag you say what? Hashtag where's Jose Waldo? And let's figure this shit out. You know, I want to do it. I want my real one. And hey Dana. Hashtag UFC Hawaii. UFC Hawaii. You look.
Hey, you won the bonus. What, you won everything?
Yeah. Hey, you're mad. I just got 51K. I love you, Dana.
You had some stiff competition for those bonus dollars tonight. Were you watching the fights prior?
Oh, yeah. I saw Lando Ruby, that motherfucker. Is crazy. I saw Jordan's fight. That's fight at night. If they're not, Dana, we're going to have to talk about that one. But,
Yeah, Donald Cerrone.
I was about to say, man, Donald Cerrone with that left high kick from hell. Holy shit. It was crazy, man. Crazy.
Quickly here, after the fight, Anthony Pettis was standing on the referee's hand. Did you sense that at all?
I did. Seriously, he kept coming, you know, and our game plan was to take him in deep waters, keep drawing slowly, you know. If you see on my finish, I don't really get first round finishes. I finish guys late in the round, you know. I take over the fight late in the round, you know. We make it competitive, and then we start making them feel like, holy shit, what I gotta do, you know, in here, and then the answer is absolutely nothing. We wait till you get your ass beat, you know. But I'm just joking, man. We wanted to take him in deep waters, and so that's exactly what we did. And you know, I got to finish. You know, I landed some Showtime stuff on him, so it was a great night. You know?
I mean, there's cupcakes out.
Oh, we got cases, man. I promised Dustin Ortiz some, so hopefully he can take one case and eat them.
Last question here. I know where you want the Jose Aldo fight to be. Hashtag UFC Hawaii. What's your ideal timetable? I mean, do you want a little break from this?
Yeah, you know, I said February 11th, and I was thinking to myself, you know, Waldo is a good hider, you know, so he might not show up to February 11th, and that's me giving up my damn son's birthday and Christmas, and I ain't about that life. So, you know, until you really figure out where you want to show up, we see, you know, and I'll be ready maybe like January, February, March, April, maybe around May or April, you know, we see what happens. But I got a little bunch of bruises, take care of that. I already missed my Thanksgiving, I missed my damn birthday, and I ain't giving up my son's and Christmas for fucking Jose Waldo. So, you know, he can figure out what he want to do, and I'll be ready.
Catch it. Jose Aldo and Max Holloway. All right, we will take the time out, but on the other side, we are going to hear from UFC President Dana White. You heard a little bit of him with Max Holloway. We got a chance to speak with him last week. Plus, Anthony Rumble Johnson chatting about the fact that he was not headlining UFC 206 and what's going to happen in the light heavyweight picture when we come back on the MMA Report on TSN Radio.
This is the MMA Report with John Pollock on TSN Radio.
We're back on the MMA Report. John Pollock with you on TSN Radio. Up next, some more interviews coming your way. First up, we are going to be hearing from Anthony Rumble Johnson. He is, for all intents and purposes, the #1 contender to the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship held by Daniel Cormier, who is currently on the sidelines after having surgery for his abductor muscle, which prevented him from fighting against Johnson this past weekend at UFC 206 in Toronto. Nonetheless, Anthony Johnson was brought up as a guest fighter in Toronto last weekend, and I had a chance to catch up with Rumble and discuss the state of the light heavyweight division, the injury to Cormier, and not getting to fight in Toronto.
Is it a little bittersweet being up here knowing that this was such a big fight for you, but you still get to come up here and see a lot of these fans that bought tickets to see you? I mean, it's got to be mixed emotions here this weekend.
Yeah, man, you know, I'm disappointed because I disappointed the fans. I didn't give them what they wanted. A lot of them bought tickets to watch me fight. Not just watch me fight, but watch the entire event. But I still wanted to come and support them, just like they supported me and show them love. So it's been fun so far.
Is there any kind of a timetable that you've been given about, we know Daniel Cormier's had surgery now, is there any update on the timeline of when this fight will take place?
No, I haven't heard anything. I think he had surgery, I'm not sure. But I know how painful a growing injury is, and he could be out for a couple of months.
It's cold turkey at that point from training? What do you do when you get that kind of news so close to a fight?
Well, it was Thanksgiving Day whenever they told me, so I ate a lot of mashed potatoes, gravy, turkey, and everything else. But yeah, so I just stopped cold turkey because I was training so hard already. My body was peaking big time. You know, I felt amazing. So you know, you don't want to, you know, overtrain anything like that. So I haven't been back in the gym since then. Just kind of like, you know, relaxing and like traveling a little bit and just enjoying myself.
The talks never got serious about you staying on this card at heavyweight or doing anything?
Well, they wanted me to fight Musashi, but that was just pointless to me. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I still had to lose weight. He basically just didn't have to do anything. If I would have beat him, it wouldn't have meant anything because interim titles are really garbage, honestly. And if I would have lost to him, I would have lost everything I worked for. So it wasn't. That whole situation was just not good.
I completely agree with you. I mean, is there some security in the sense that, I mean, there is no other contender but you. I don't see that there's any way you can make any other light heavyweight title fight without you part of that equation.
Yeah, I deserve it. I beat everybody that's basically around except for DC. You know, I knocked out Glover, I knocked out Vader, I knocked out Jefferson, I knocked out Jimmy Manuel. There's really nothing left for me to prove except to beat the champion, and that's it.
We got the news this week. John Jones, he got a 1-year suspension from the Nevada Athletic Commission, so he's allowed to fight come July. Is that a fight that is on your bucket list? It's certainly, I think, for John Jones fights out there at 205, that's the fight people want to see, is you and Jones at some point down the line.
If it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
You're not swinging to that as necessary.
Yeah, I'm not focusing on anything like that. John isn't in the picture right now, so I haven't thought about it, you know what I mean? And John is a hell of an athlete. I mean, he's still the best fighter we've ever seen in light heavyweight, you know? He's the last thing I'm thinking about right now because he's not in there with me, you know what I mean? It's just me and him, and that's it. You know, if it comes to John, if he's around by the time, you know, Dan and I fight, and, you know, he's the only one left, and yeah, we'll have a fight.
Would you be comfortable with him getting a title fight right away in the track?
No.
He's earned that shot.
No, everybody needs to earn a shot, you know what I mean? Yeah, of course he needs to earn a shot. But of course, it's not like anybody out there that he hasn't beat, you know what I mean? And whenever everything was going on, I was going to fight, you know, it was up in there who was going to fight Danny, me or John. I'm like, well, why don't I fight Danny like I'm supposed to? John needs to work his way back up. Why doesn't he fight Jefferson? Give him a 3 match like Jefferson. So it just would have made, and I'll put all of us on the card and make it basically a light heavyweight tournament. You know what I mean? The fans would have moved on first. So, yeah, when it happens, it happens. It doesn't happen.
Final thing here, you were recently on the MMA Hour, and Ariel had given you a comment that your manager, Glenn Robinson, had made about staying in this industry as long as Anthony Johnson is there. Have you since spoken to Glenn to clarify what he meant by that statement? Because you seemed a little put off when he made that statement.
I was very surprised whenever Ariel told me that. Glenn texted me probably later on that day, and he explained it to me, and I didn't even reply to it. I just didn't want to go on that road, you know what I mean? And he didn't say anything mean or disrespectful. He was just explaining the situation, and you know, that's between him and Ariel and myself. I'm not the one that really go out there and put people's business out in you know, in social media anywhere.
Fair enough. Well, Anthony, it's great that you're able to come up here in Toronto. We're looking forward to that fight eventually with Daniel Cormier, and thank you very much for the time.
From Anthony Johnson, we are now going to move on over to UFC President Dana White, who I got a couple of minutes with this past Friday. This occurred just after the public weigh-ins involving all of the fighters at UFC 206, and we got into numerous topics, including the recent releases of Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes, the future for Misha Tate. So we started things off with the Mixed Martial Arts Athletes Association, and if Dana White had any knowledge of the association prior.
When you met with George St. Pierre roughly a month ago, we came down to Las Vegas. Did he indicate to you as Athletes Association that this was something he would be pursuing?
He did not, no.
care. I mean, at the end of the day, these are all grown men and women. And as a fighter, there are a lot of people trying to put their hands in your pocket. Okay? And you have to decide which hand you want in your pocket and which not. If you want York's hand in your pocket, I don't know what to do for you. I don't know how to help you, and good luck here.
You feel he's detrimental to these fighters advancing what they want out of this association? Will he prevent that from happening?
Not only that, I mean, you got three of them out there. You got three of these things. They're all fighting with each other now. You know what I mean? So we're going to help them. We're going to help the fighters. Getting cease and desist letters, and that's what I thought it would be. You know, all three of them are businesses. They're trying to create a business, just like anybody else. You know, the big thing used to be starting mixed martial arts organizations. Now it's starting even associations. So it's going to be fun to watch.
I noticed here you're wearing vintage Chuck Liddell jacket. Have you spoken to Chuck Liddell in that season in the past week? Were you the one that gave him the Thank you to both Dana White and Anthony Johnson for joining us. On the other side, one more guest to go. Mickey Gall, who will be in action against Sage Northcutt this coming weekend on Fox in Sacramento. That is coming your way on the MMA Report. Keep it locked on TSN Radio.
And now, back to the MMA Report with John Pollock on TSN Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, to the MMA Report here on TSN Radio. Coming up this Saturday night, the UFC is in Sacramento, California. It will be airing on Fox. The main card is coming at you at 8 p.m. Eastern. Eastern Time, and one of the fights that many people are looking forward to. It'll involve Sage Northcutt taking on the man who joins us now, Mickey Gall, who has had quite the year in 2016. Mickey, how are you doing today?
Doing great, my friend. What's going on?
Have you been able to kind of take in just where you were a year ago versus today? Because it's been quite the year for you in 2016. You have a lot of momentum going into this fight, and this was a fight that you called your shot and you got the fight you wanted. Has this been just a roller coaster of a year for you?
Yeah, man, it's been wonderful. I've been very fortunate. Yeah, it's been a great year. But, you know, to be honest, I haven't been doing the same stuff I've always been doing. Training my butt off, trying to make myself the best MMA fighter I can be. You know, this is my third fight this year, so I've just been training. That's it, man. Just focusing on my craft and, trying to make myself the best version of myself possible.
I feel there's a lot of fighters out there, Mickey, that can learn from what you've done, and you've been able to show off your talents, you've got the victories, but anytime you've got a platform, you've used it to advance your career, whether it was on looking for a fight, whether it was in the lead up to the CM Punk fight, calling out Sage Northcutt afterwards. I think a lot of fighters, they're always asked that question, what is next for you? And so many of them never have an answer. You have in all of those instances, and I think you have reaped the benefits of having that mindset, of having a path in mind that has brought you to this, and now fighting on Foxholes.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I've also heard all the guys not have an answer when given that question. And I think, why not put your 2 cents in? They're asking for a reason. Here's your chance, you can get the fans excited, you get the fans demanding it. Ask for that fight. And, so yeah, you'll always have, me having a name in my mouth after every fight.
Given the long wait you had for the eventual fight with CM Punk, you got a lot of notoriety out of that fight. Was it worth the wait for you? Because that was a long time period. I'm sure you wanted to fight in that stretch between February and September. At the end of the day, were you almost just tired of everything, so focused on CM Punk that you were glad to move on to the next step of your career?
Yeah, I'm happy to move on, but that was a great opportunity. It was worth the wait. There's a reason why they're calling it the golden ticket. The CM Punk lottery. It was a good fight, man. For any MMA fighter, to win that guy, it's going to be a good matchup for the MMA fighter. The seasoned MMA fighter. So, it was worth the wait, and I'm very happy to move on and now fight the UFC caliber guys. Not to be disrespectful by any means, but like this kid Sage Northcutt, he's a legit UFC guy, and now that gets me more excited. CM Punk was great for giving me exposure. As I say, a lot of great MMA fighters. My buddies Sean Rock Santella, Andy Main, fighters staying up security. Certain guys like to be here, but don't get the shot for whatever reason. And I've been very fortunate that I've gotten the shot. Now I get to do what I'm passionate about, and let's be great fighters.
You know firsthand how much attention he was able to garner for that fight. I mean, that's a big part of this industry when you're a promotion like the UFC is how much interest we can attract with a specific fighter. Would you, looking into your crystal ball, do you feel that there's a value in putting CM Punk in another UFC fight? Or would you like to see this guy progress his career with maybe less of a spotlight on him so he can just focus on that?
There's definitely a value. He'll make pay-per-view buys, he'll bring over attention, he will bring the wrestling fan base that he's, achieved over time. So I totally get it from a business move, from a legitimacy of the sport. It doesn't help much, but, I'm sure if they do it, there's a reason for it, and, if the guy wants to do it, hats off to him for wanting to come back. If I'm being honest, I think he'll probably get dealt the same way that I did.
Focusing on this Saturday against Sage Northcutt, when did you first become aware of Sage Northcutt? Was it through looking for a fight where many people first were introduced to Mickey Gall? And what attracted you to this fight that you wanted?
I had Sage's name in the back of my mind since before I ever got the CM Punk fight. I kind of saw the path here where, I'm a punch up. CM Punk's a bigger name than me. I wanna eat that. I wanna eat that star power, and that'll help me rise and make money and have good things happen to me in this sport. And Sage the same thing. He's got a lot of hype. I'm punching up at him too. He's a bigger star. So it's cool, man. I've had Sage in my head for a while, and I'm happy I've been able to get this that.
Were you surprised at all that despite it, you made the challenge back in September and the fight got made relatively quickly, and the biggest question was, would Sage take this fight at 170 pounds? Was that a reservation you had in your mind if you would be so willing to return to welterweight?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't put this out there because obviously I'd rather the fight at 170, but I would have been willing to have a crappy couple months, and I've very physically trained. I think I would have chased him down to 155 if need be. It would have been rough. I would not have enjoyed it. I like 170. It's a whole lot easier, but I would have done what I needed to do because I love this fight. I asked for this fight, and I asked for a reason, so I know it's a great fight.
When did you first align with Firas Zahabi? Because you've been at the TriStar dorms up in Montreal. When was that connection made, and is this going to be something that you're going to continue beyond this fight?
Yeah, I started talking with Firas out in, actually when I first had the idea, I was talking to Tom Breeze last year at the UFC Summit, and he had mentioned it, and I was like, I've been under the American Top Team dorms, I loved it there. It's awesome. I can't wait. I gotta get back there too. So I love them and that team and that's him. But yeah, then I saw Firas out in Cleveland, and I was like, I hit it off with him. He said, anytime you want to come up, be my guest. So I took him up on that, and because I think he's one of the greatest minds that ever met, Firas Zahabi. So I went up there. I had a great opportunity to learn from him. Stay up in the dorms up in Montreal, and it was great. I met a lot of great friends, and I got to learn from one of the great minds in this game.
Is that the kind of environment you're looking for? Because, you've been on this show before and described just all the miles you had to drive going from gym to gym. Here you were in one specific spot, you're living there, and, it just gives you more time to train right away.
Exactly. You don't have to, it's like, it's kind of rough on your body, doing a hard practice, and then you get in your car, and you drive back and get all stiff, and you get out, and you're like, ugh, It's nice to just walk down the hallway, practice, walk back down the hallway, shower, and you're done. You know what I mean? It's like, it moves quicker, it's easier on your body. It allows me to do, 10, 15 practices like 15 practices a week, pretty easy. And yeah, I can't wait to get back there. I get some more training and learn some more.
The biggest question on many people's mind, Mickey, are you going to have the same entrance music this coming Saturday, or is it going to be a surprise?
I will be coming out to Hey Mickey, but there will be a little remix of it.
Oh my goodness.
There'll be, I guess, it's awesome.
That sounds fantastic. And a final thing here, this has been great, Mickey. If the question comes your way about what's next, you have a name in mind. You don't have to reveal it, but are you thinking, or is it going to be something spur of the moment if you are asked?
I think this past week I kind of came up with a name.
Oh,
so yeah, I'll have a name after I beat Big Saturday. Fox.
It's going down this Saturday night, 8 Eastern, the main card, airing on Fox. It's Sage Northcutt taking on Mickey Gall. Mickey, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and all the best going into Saturday night. Really looking forward to this fight.
My pleasure, John. Thanks for having me, bro.
And that will bring the MMA report to a close. A big thank you to all of our guests who joined us over the past hour, including Mickey Gall, Anthony Johnson, Dana White, Max Holloway, Donald Cerrone, and Kelvin Gaston. A stacked lineup as we head into the weekend. The UFC will be on Fox. Alan Jouban taking on Mike Perry. I don't think that fight's getting enough focus. That could be a lot of fun. Uriah Faber's retirement fight against Brad Pickett in the Golden One Center in Sacramento. And then Sage Northcutt, Mickey Gall, and then the main event involving Paige Van Zandt and Michelle Watterson. The Uriah Faber retirement should really be something, and I mean, a guy that was synonymous with the WEC. I think he gave a lot of confidence that they could build divisions at 145 and 135 and transfer them over to the UFC, and that was always the discussion that Uriah Faber was on this platform and he needs to be utilized on the biggest platform, and that being the UFC, a huge figure in the history of mixed martial arts. That will bring the show to a close. You can subscribe to the MMA Report on iTunes. A reminder, next week it will be our final show on TSN Radio, but the show will continue. So subscribe on iTunes so you won't ever miss a show, because coming up in 3 weeks we will have the annual prediction show with Ariel Hawani. That is all for me. Thanks for listening to the MMA Report.
Yeah. 1cc this bitch. Get that on tape, baby. Not a high score, but I think this is the first ever documented, perfect run of Ninja Warriors done on a real Super Nintendo. Remote controller. I'm pretty sure there have been other people out there that finished this game, you know, 1cc'd it. But I don't think they actually did it like, you know, really recording it like I did. Getting the evidence. Or maybe they did it on an emulator or they used cheat codes or whatever. Nope, they didn't do that. No Game G there. Oh, Super Nintendo, baby. Let's do a selfie. Let's do a selfie with the Super. Yeah. Yeah, I should have shaved. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you all for watching this crazy little video. 1cc and Ninja Warriors. Hey, that has to count for something, eh? Okay, this is Arizona World Heavyweight Champion Star Soldier 1, Ryan Chino, over and out. Fade in, fade in.